the virtual court proceedings can work. Unless that is done, I see it as a seed of injustice being planted on the altar of running away from pandemic, and then creating more problem, more pandemic than the pandemic that we are running away from.
My name is I'm a lawyer based here in Abuja, Nigeria, and I'm also a chaperone and a member of the Elite Lawyers Association of Nigeria. And with me today is the amazing learned senior advocate of Nigeria, Barrister J.S Okutepa. Nice to meet you and nice to have you on the show.
Thank you. I prefer to be addressed as Mr. because I think I'm told that taking on the title of barrister is professional misconduct.
Okay.
I do not want to engage in professional misconduct.
Okay, no problem. Well, today we're going to be talking about pressing topics facing the judiciary right now. It is no longer news that the world is being ravaged by a global pandemic called the COVID-19. And I would like to ask you, from a very senior member of the bar, what will you say are the positives COVID-19 has done or caused in the Nigerian judicial sector?
Well, let me not restrict it to the Nigerian judicial sector.
Okay.
I think I should look at it from the global Nigerian society.
Okay.
I think the lesson we need to draw from, which we should draw from this, is that every one of us is equal. No one can run to London, Paris, or Germany for any medical tourism. So we're all in Nigerian soil, breathing Nigerian air, taking Nigerian treatments, and facing Nigerian, what I may refer to as mere consulting clinics rooms for our health cares. So the lesson to be drawn is that our political leaders have found themselves in a very tough quagmire in health issues, and now no one can fly out of this country. And it started from the high. That means also that we need to be very careful, because God is watching us. And so, come to the judicial sector, I do not see any positive lesson to be drawn than that the pandemic has grievously affected the delivery of justice to the downtrodden masses of this society. If you look at Regulation 7 of the COVID-19 regulations issued by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, there is an exception to time-bound cases or cases of urgent nature or fundamental nature. But when you look at it holistically from the practical point of view of Nigerian society, it's the halves that are having these cases that have the coloration of time-bound political cases. For instance, if a market woman or some poor downtrodden from somewhere in Mbise in Imo State, or Olu in Imo State, or somewhere in Ofekwe in local government in Kogi State, or Apata in Odolu in that local government, are involved and arrested by the Nigerian security operatives to take the intervention of God for those people to get justice in our courts. So I see the pandemic as bringing to us something that we need to think, that it is not all bed of roses when people who are supposed to take care of our health issues, institutions, neglect it. And I was amazed and shocked to hear from a very senior citizens of this country that it's only this pandemic that made them to know that Nigerian health institutions is in a state of shambles, and that they didn't know that we don't have hospitals. That's to tell you the level of political neglect or negligence that our political leaders have subjected us to over the years. And so there is a lesson to be learned that this pandemic should restore, and I want to emphasize the word, to restore our senses, to provide social amenity and every amenity that is required, so that Nigerians do not fly out of this country for medical tourism. For me, there are no advantages for our judicial sector. It's only those of us who have few cases that are time bound that are going to court. So, and young lawyers are facing what I may refer to as excruciating experience in this pandemic environment, to the extent that some of us who God have blessed and those of us they considered as privileged few have been approached, and the lawyers have become more or less like beggars in their own society, in which case the nobility of this profession has been shipwrecked. The nobility of this profession has been subjected to serious social ridicule, ridicules, and what I may refer to as social blockade. And so it becomes difficult for me to quantify the advantage that this has caused to the justice sector of our society. Rather, I see incalculable damages that have been done to, one, the resources we have, two, the delivery of justice in our society. And so I pray earnestly that an end comes for this pandemic, so that those of us who are completely imprisoned, so to speak, to come out to look for our daily bread, using the God-given talent that we have acquired from our universities and law school as lawyers. So I cannot in clear conscience tell you that there are advantages from the justice sector or the judiciary. But on a global societal level, it has taught our political leaders lesson that all that are glitters are not gold. Time for them to think and think Nigerians and downtrodden people is now.
There's a typical saying that necessity is the mother of all invention. And as a result of this global pandemic, technology is being, used right now to do so many things. And in the Nigerian judicial sector, technology has been there, but has not been fully embraced. But so far, with this pandemic right now, some high courts are remotely sitting online right now using the Zoom video app. I remember that a few days ago, even the judgment was given online. Court proceedings right now, court sittings are being done online. So don't you think to a certain extent there's some kind of positivity for the Nigerian judiciary? Because I feel like this pandemic is like a catalyst of change, which will prompt the Nigerian judiciary right now to start reviewing laws, the RPC, the LPA, case management system in law firms as well. Lawyers creating online presence, using their emails more often, using their websites more often. Don't you think so?
Well, to the extent that you are even in my office thinking about this interview, I see it as positive something, because this pandemic now is making you, the young lawyers, to think out of the box. To that extent, I see some element of positivity, because outside of poverty, you can hardly find persons who can sit down and think. That is why, if you look very well, most children of the poor people do better in our institutions of higher learning than the children of the well-to-do, because the resources are always there. So, but having said that, I have issues, and I've said so in an interview I granted today on this point, that how do we marry these the quests for virtual court proceedings vis-a-vis our laws? Now, you know that the ground norm of this country is the Constitution. And the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, for instance, enjoins that when proceedings are conducted in criminal matters, like the type you have cited, it should be done in open court, where the member of the public have the right of ingress and egress. In other words, open court is defined in so many judicial authorities as such a place that members of the public have the unfettered access to the court. Now, when you talk about Zoom application, it's a restricted application because it is not open to the general public, because you must have a password to enter the Zoom. So how do we then marry that vis-a-vis constitutional provision that in criminal trials, proceedings must be conducted in open court, because not all members of the public can have access to that Zoom app. Second point is, Nigeria is a federation. We are not operating a unitary system of government, and there is what we call territorial jurisdiction. Now, can a judge of FCT High Court, for instance, sit in Lagos using Zoom application to conduct proceedings? Can he be defined as a judge of FCT sitting in FCT High Court on that matter? Or can it also be said that in Zoom application, how do you expect the defendants, who used to be called accused persons, to be in court? Because by our law, an accused person should be in the dock. Where will be the dock using Zoom application? Where will the witnesses be called be from? Now, those are some technical issues of law that we need to think around it. Then when you come to our society, now, do we really have uninterrupted energy supply that can power the Zoom application? And if we have energy, do we have uninterrupted internet access? Then who is going to bear the cost of the internet access? Is it going to be free? Do we have free internet access? What has the Nigerian Communication Commission done or to give us access? How do we go around about it? Then none of us has also talked about the character of lawyers, our attitude. In the real practice we do now as lawyers, how many of us can vouch for the integrity and credibilities of lawyers to be nationalistic and patriotic, to respect the rules of professional conduct which you ably quoted? Rule 1 of the rules of professional conduct talks about the responsibility of a lawyer in administration of justice. How many lawyers adhere strictly to Rule 1 of the rules of professional conduct to look for justice outside of primordial partisan client's interests? By the rules of professional conduct, we are told that client's cause is not your cause. But you go to court today and see lawyers who are more partisan than even the litigant themselves. And their sense of vision in terms of undiluted advocacy in the temple of justice has completely become impaired, because they have engaged themselves and entered into the arena, and their visions become beclouded by the dust of their counter. So, when you are talking about these virtual court proceedings in an environment of Nigeria that is infested with so many societal vices such as primordial partisan tribal interests, ownership of wrongs. Nigeria is the only country where we give baptismal name to wrong as right. What do you say about all those things? So I think that good and laudable and well-intentioned as it is not a matter to be rushed. Because in rushing to go into virtual court proceedings, we may, in the attempt to give justice to our people, murder justice in the process. Because we don't seem to be ready for it. There is environmental hostility. There is societal hostility. There is professional hostility. There is professional issues. And if a lawyer wants to tender paper from Zoom proceedings, how does he do it? Now you also have forgotten what we refer to as Yahoo boys. The Yahoo boys of today. And we are using internet. How do you deal with the Yahoo interruption of proceedings?
Like
hacking into and turn the processes. How do we? So these are things that we should sit down rather than acting on a horse and waking up to say, oh, this is pandemic. Now the whole world is going virtual trials, so we must go into it. You don't use the size of another person's leg to do your shoe. His leg may be larger than yours. So if you do so, the shoes may not fit on your legs. So we need to sit down and look at the peculiarities of our societies and fine-tune our society, the Zoom application to suit our situation. I think for what is what, even the time-bound proceedings that we are being subjected to go to court, the judiciary can adopt a positive and proactive interpretation to say that because of the circumstances of the force majeure, time does not run. So that we can have a clear head, clear court direction, and then come out to give interpretation to our law that serve the interests of mankind. After all, mankind is not made for law, law is made for mankind. And so if mankind is not benefiting from the interpretation and application of law, that to me becomes anachronistic and anti-people and anti-justice and becomes a justice that is polluted. So justice that does not serve the overall interests of our people cannot be described as justice. So for me, I'm not too enthusiastic about this Zoom or this virtual trial of a thing until all our laws are amended. And once the laws are amended, and then the environment is conducive for it, I'm all for it. In any case, how many lawyers are technologically inclined and compliant? Because majority of Nigerian lawyers are still analog. And in a remote village, if you go to Isikat village, local government in Akwa Ibom, for instance, there are lawyers in that village that may not know how to operate this laptop and what have you. If you look at our elections, for instance, that we attempted on 2 occasions to go e-voting, the story is better imagined than told, where even within the committee of noble men and women, things are done outside of the integrity-driven profession that you and I belong to. Because the hallmark of any of this legal profession is integrity. And once integrity is questioned, because you know that under our rules of professional conduct, no lawyer should give appearance of impropriety. But in our society, not only do we give appearance of impropriety, we defend impropriety with the last blood in our vein. And so, that is why the society looks at us now as even the problem of the society. So we must deal with all these perceptions before the virtual court proceedings can work. Unless that is done, I see it as a seed of injustice being planted on the altar of running away from pandemic and then creating more pandemic than the pandemic that we are running away from.
Okay, well, we've heard from him. It's a journey, and the pros and the cons have to be weighed properly, and the laws have to be amended adequately in order to actually contain and inculcate technology into the Nigerian judicial sector. Okay, ever since the lockdown was declared by the president, a lot of lawyers, young lawyers, have been laid off work, and it's really nobody's fault but COVID-19. So how do you think the NBA can position itself to help young lawyers and help curb, the unemployment of young lawyers in Nigeria?
Well, I do not want to sound like an opposition lawyer, but if you notice, the Nigerian Bar Association has set up what they call welfare committee of COVID-19, where senior lawyers like my humble selves are being called upon to make donations so that they can give palliative to young lawyers. I have my reservation for it.
Okay.
I have done some palliative to some lawyers, but the profession of law is so honorable that I consider it demeaning for young lawyers to be given palliative as if they are beggars. The nobility of this profession does not allow me to think along that line. I rather want to think along the line that to solve the problems of young lawyers, NBA as a professional association must think beyond giving 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, or even 1 million to young lawyers as a sign of palliative, because it's tantamount to giving fish to a man to eat rather than teaching the man how to fish for himself. So I think my attitude is that we have squandered so many opportunities of creating jobs for young lawyers. For instance, there is a provision under the Evidence Act that if you want a public document, it should be certified by public officers who keeps custody of that document. What stopped the Nigerian Bar Association, in conjunction with other stakeholders, to pursue legislation that at every offices in this country, only lawyer should be the one that are in charge of public document and to certify it. By that, if you make that law to be applicable to 770 something local governments, you have given a job to 770 something lawyers in 770 something local government in Nigeria. Not to talk about ministries, not to talk about parastatals, not to talk about agencies, not to talk about institutions. But today, who are the persons doing certifications in public institutions for public documents? Non-lawyers. We have not gone to land registries where it should be exclusive preserve of lawyers to be there as land registrars. So the Nigerian Bar Association, through its legislative advocacy, can create an opportunities by lawmaking to give employment to Nigerian lawyers. And by the time lawyers are in government employment receiving pay, it lessens the burden. Then you go to the question of practice of law. Ministry of Justice found out briefs to senior lawyers. What stopped the attorneys general of the various ministries to say, if we give out briefs to Mr. A, B, C, and D for 10 million naira, the lawyers in the Ministry of Justice, that your 10 million naira, you must bring 3 million naira to give to young lawyers and lawyers in the Ministry of Justice who are assisting you in addition to their salaries, so that they can also have money in their pockets. What stopped the Nigerian Bar Association to invest some of the part of our practicing fees in investment-driven businesses that can be exclusively reserved for lawyers as employment? What stopped the Nigerian Bar Association? So, when we talk about this palliative given to Nigerian lawyers at this peak of COVID-19, as if Nigerian lawyers are beggars, it seems to me, with respect, that it's demeaning the integrity of the nobility of the profession. So, again, I think that the leadership of Nigerian Bar Association should think out of the box, rather than this fire brigade approach of going to Wuse Market to buy rice and say 2 or 3 lawyers will come and share in a bag. Because that, to me, is reducing lawyers to beggars on the streets. So that is why I'm not a fan of it. Not that I cannot give, but even the sharing formula of this money, who are to benefit from it? Not only young lawyers are facing this serious financial crisis, or even this poverty in this environment. Even some senior advocates, because we all go to Nigerian market, we go to Nigerian, we are operating in Nigerian environment, it is like, unless I am briefed and paid, I won't have money to pay my colleagues in chambers. So when we are looking at it from the point of view of the young lawyers, good, laudable as it is, we have also not taken into account some senior junior lawyers. Because there are some senior lawyers who are living from hand to mouth. What have been the palliatives for those ones? What do we need to do? So we don't seem, we always like to follow crowd, and we are not thinking beyond our nose. We are not philosophical enough to see beyond today. And so when this problem comes again, when you go for NEC meeting, you sit down and waste your time to talk about state of the nature. I don't know what that means. I recall sometimes ago, I think in 2006 or thereabout, when we went for NEC meeting in Port Harcourt, the then governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi, came and said something there that struck me. He said, "Physician, heal thyself." If we want to make serious inroad in the poverty-stricken environment we find ourselves, the Nigerian Bar Association must first of all heal itself. And once you heal yourself and look at ourselves in our face and tell ourselves the bitter truth of what is wrong with us, then the rest of the society will fall in line. And rig an election and use all manner of gimmicks, political thuggery, and all unorthodox way to come to power. Who do you see at the center of resolution? Lawyers. And when I talk about lawyers, those in practice and on the bench. So until we decide to show light, Nigeria is the only society where darkness seems to overtake light. Because the legal profession is a profession of light. But where light seems to have given way to darkness, that is why everybody looks at us as part of the problem. So for me, time has come where the legal profession should go beyond this question of palliative to its members and create employment for itself and for its members in a manner that is objective, in a manner that is right, in a manner that is transparent, in a manner that when we are moving on the street in Abuja or any street like it used to be in those days, they say, "There go a lawyer." But today, even those of us senior advocates may risk being stoned one of these days if we continue the way we are going, because we have now begun to imbibe a subconsciousness in the young lawyers that wrong can be given a baptismal name of right. And once you begin to give baptismal name of right to wrong, the society will revolt. And we will then go to Obrusian's theory of life becoming shortish, brutish, and nasty, because mighty becomes right, and there will be no place for industry, and then the poor and the downtrodden becomes angry, and one day they will take up arms and we will begin to invite unintended revolution. Let me take us to a little bit of this palliative they say they are giving. If you see I was watching on social media, some vehicles were attacked because the palliatives were not being justly distributed. This is the same thing that is going on. When you are talking about this palliative that you want to give to young lawyers, what are the parameters of giving to young lawyers? Even as at now, there is a division. Say those of young lawyers working with senior advocates should not get. Those working with the ministry should not get. Those working with parastatal should not get the palliative. Who tells you that those working with senior advocates of Nigeria are well remunerated like any other person? So for me, Nigerian Bar Association needs to think out of the box and avoid primordial partisan consideration in this issue. We're all stakeholders. I do not know any other business to do than the business of being a lawyer. And so when I speak my mind, I speak my mind on the basis of truth. And no matter the name you give truth, it remains truth. It has no color. And it remains constant. From the time of Adam and Eve, truth remains truth. So even if we give baptismal name of right or wrong, it cannot turn to right. That is why I believe that the Nigerian Bar Association must live up to its name as being an association of noble men and women, where integrity matters a lot, no matter whose us is God, because justice is blind. And the reason is very simple, it does not see. But as one of the erudite justices of our court says, justice has become open-eyed. He can now see the difference between the poor and the rich. And once justice begins to see the distinction between Sandra and Solomon and Victor and Okutepa, then that impeccable attributes of virtues in justice, which is undiluted, becomes diluted with a mud. And once it's diluted with a mud, then the immaculate concept of justice is completely gone. And everyone will go saying, justice has been murdered. So for me, Nigerian Bar Association needs to do more than raising funds for palliative for young lawyers. We need to look at it from short-term and give lawyers opportunity to go fishing rather than giving them fish to eat, which in not too distant future will get finished. And then where will they get another fish to eat? But if they are the one fishing for themselves, they then have opportunity to save the fish in the fridge, so that when they get married, they can go to the fridge to take the particles from there and give to their wife.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Zeal, for being on the show today. We have really learned a lot. As you can see from what he said, we commend the efforts of the MBA for the palliative measures they are setting up to help take care of lawyers, and we also encourage them to do more. And also, in accepting technology in the Nigerian judicial sector, the laws obviously have to be reformed. So, Leonard, do you have any last words for us?
My last words is to thank you. That's what we want. The young lawyers, you have put this together to enlighten your colleagues. And so, for those of them who are looking onto big men to be big men, needs to be patient and hardworking, because Rome was not built in a day.
Yeah, and law is a profession, you must pay your dues.
You must pay your dues. And I pay my dues, and as a lawyer, I trekked for 10 years.
Oh my God.
Before I was able to buy what is called, Lord Dennis described it as being reasonably driven along the road, which is a moto, not even motor car. And when I was coming, you know that moto is coming. It doesn't need a horn. But today, God has done what He needed to do for me. So you need patience and hard working with the fear of God to make it in this profession.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we hope you have learned a lot, and we will see you on the next one.